All right, so today we're diving deep into online dispute resolution, or ODR. It's basically how we're settling disagreements online these days.
And it's a lot more fascinating than it sounds.
Oh, yeah, for sure. We've got some amazing sources that'll take us from like the early days of eBay
Oh, wow.
to the future of AI in dispute resolution.
It's really incredible how ODR has gone from this kind of niche thing to like a mainstream solution, quietly revolutionizing how we deal with conflict.
Yeah, and what's really interesting to me is how fast technology changes,
Right?
but also how careful the dispute resolution field has been about actually using it.
Hmm.
So let's start with a true ODR pioneer, this guy, Colin.
Oh, yeah.
He's been at the forefront of this field for decades.
His story's pretty amazing. You know what stands out to me is his lifelong fascination with technology.
Yeah.
He saw the potential of using tech to resolve disputes way back when e-commerce was just emerging.
Yeah, he was a total tech enthusiast from a young age. I mean, he got his first computer at 10 years old.
Wow.
It was an Apple II Plus, and he was hooked immediately. I mean,
Yeah.
it's that passion for technology combined with his background as a mediator
Mm-hmm.
that led him down this really unique path.
And, being in the right place at the right time always helps. While he was working at the National Institute for Dispute Resolution in the late 90s, he was actually there when the term ODR was coined.
Wow, really?
Yeah, and he even co-authored one of the first books on the subject.
This was like prime time for e-commerce too, right?
Absolutely.
It was exploding, and people
Mm.
were really struggling with how to handle all these disputes between buyers and sellers online.
Yeah, it was the Wild West.
It's wild to think he was there at the beginning of it all.
I think it really shows how visionaries, they can see those future trends and shape entire fields.
Absolutely. And speaking of being at the right place at the right time, Rule ended up at eBay.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he'll build their ODR program, which wasn't just any ODR program. This thing was massive.
Oh, yeah. eBay's system was handling something like 60 million disputes a year
60 million.
at its peak. That's more than the entire U.S. civil court system.
Wow, that's mind-blowing. What was it about eBay's system that made it work so well?
Well, they had this really smart tiered approach.
Okay.
They started with automated tools to help users resolve issues on their own.
Makes sense.
And if that didn't work, they could escalate to mediation and then eventually arbitration if they needed to.
So it wasn't just like throwing tech at the problem. It was about creating a system
Right.
that helped people find the right solution.
Exactly. And a key part of that was the feedback system. Both buyers and sellers could rate each other and the outcome of the dispute.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and that helped build trust and accountability.
It's amazing how they created a system that could handle so much so well.
Yeah.
Talk about a game changer for online dispute resolution.
It really set the standard, inspired a wave of innovation.
And of course, technology never stands still. Let's talk about cell phones. Seems like a small thing now, but back then, internet access was a huge obstacle.
Oh yeah, in the early days of ODR, most people didn't have smartphones
Right.
or easy access to the internet on the go. It really limited ODR's potential.
It's so wild how technology can move so fast, but people are much slower to adapt.
For sure.
I mean, look at the dispute resolution field.
Mm-hmm.
Compared to something like the entertainment industry, they've been super deliberate about adopting new technologies.
And that cautious approach has been a good thing. It's given them time to develop ethical guidelines and self-regulation,
Yeah, that's really important.
especially as we move towards more sophisticated technologies like AI.
hmm I mean, it's amazing how something like a cell phone had such a huge impact on dispute resolution.
Right. It just shows how technology can break down barriers and open up access to justice.
And speaking of accessibility, let's talk about video conferencing.
Yeah.
Now, video conferencing itself isn't new,
Mm-hmm.
but the way it's being used in dispute resolution is pretty revolutionary.
Think about platforms like Zoom.
Yeah.
I mean, they were around for years before the pandemic, but it was the pandemic that forced everyone, even those who were hesitant, to finally embrace it as a legitimate way to connect.
You're totally right. All of a sudden, even mediators who swore by in-person interaction had to
Yeah,
adapt.
they had no choice.
Really shows how even unexpected events can lead to innovation.
It's interesting, Zoom itself isn't really ODR,
Right.
but it paved the way for ODR to use video conferencing more widely.
Yeah, I see.
The proof that virtual interactions could be just as effective, sometimes even better than meeting face-to-face.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it makes things so much easier for people in remote areas or people with disabilities who can't travel as easily.
Absolutely. And it can save time and money, make the whole thing more efficient.
So in a way, Zoom was like a catalyst
Yeah,
for video conferencing to become a bigger part of ODR.
for sure.
It's a great example of how technology in one area can have these ripple effects on totally different fields.
And now, as we look to the future, there's another technology that could totally change how we do dispute resolution.
Let's hear.
Artificial intelligence.
AI. Now that's where things get really interesting. We always hear about AI creating robo-judges.
Right. The algorithms deciding our fate.
Exactly. But, Colin Rule, our ODR expert,
Yeah.
he actually sees AI playing a different role in dispute resolution.
Oh, really? What does he think?
He thinks AI will be more like an advisor or assistant, helping people navigate the process and giving them the power to reach solutions on their own.
So instead of replacing human judgment,
Yeah,
AI would make it better.
exactly. Imagine having an AI that analyzes your case, tells you what might happen, and helps you figure out your arguments.
That's like having a super-powered legal advisor in your pocket.
That's a great way to put it. And it could really level the playing field.
Right. Give people access to that kind of support without needing to hire an expensive lawyer.
It could democratize access to justice.
That's the idea. Make it less intimidating and more accessible for everyone.
I like it. Rule actually makes this comparison to TurboTax. He says AI could do for dispute resolution what TurboTax did for taxes.
Okay, see it.
Guide people through those tricky procedures and empower them to handle their own cases.
That's a pretty powerful analogy. But wouldn't that risk favoring people who are more tech savvy?
That's a good point, and it really highlights why we need to be careful about how we design and implement AI in ODR. We need to make sure it's accessible to everyone, no matter their technical skills.
It sounds like we need to strike a balance.
Yeah.
Take advantage of AI's potential, but use it responsibly and ethically.
Absolutely. And that brings us back to ethical guidelines and self-regulation, especially with AI becoming more prominent.
You're right. We've talked about how ODR has been slow to grow, which has given time to address these ethical questions.
Right.
But what's being done to make sure AI-powered ODR is used responsibly?
That's the big question.
Well, organizations like the International Council for Online Dispute Resolution are setting standards and developing best practices. They want to make sure AI-powered ODR is transparent, fair, and accountable.
It's good to know there are people out there working on this.
Yeah, for sure.
So we've covered a lot today, from eBay to cell phones, video conferencing, and now AI.
A whirlwind tour of online dispute resolution.
And it's been quite a journey, right? We've seen how ODR has evolved and its potential to transform how we handle conflicts in this digital world.
It really is amazing.
Yeah, it really is amazing to see how far ODR has come.
From its early days on eBay to the incredible possibilities with AI, it's been an amazing ride.
And you know what blows my mind is that when Colin Rule started out, smartphones didn't even exist.
Right.
Social media, video conferencing as we know it, none of it.
Yeah.
AI was basically science fiction.
Totally.
But as each of those technologies emerged, they've been, incorporated into this ODR toolbox.
Like they were just waiting in the wings.
It speaks to how adaptable the field is and how forward-thinking they are.
Yeah, for sure.
It really makes you wonder what's next. What other crazy innovations are coming for ODR?
Well, that's what's so exciting.
Right.
With things like quantum computing and fusion energy, who knows what's possible?
Yeah, it's mind-boggling to think about. It feels like we're just getting started with what we can do.
Totally. And, as we wrap up this deep dive into ODR, I want to leave you with one final thought.
Right. Hit me with it.
As ODR continues to evolve and AI becomes a bigger part of it, what are the biggest challenges we need to address to make sure this technology is used ethically, responsibly, and benefits everyone, not just a select few?
That's a good question.
It is. It's a reminder that as we embrace these advancements, we have a responsibility to make sure they're used ethically and fairly. Access to justice shouldn't be a privilege, it should be a right.
Well said. Well, folks, that's our deep dive into online dispute resolution. We've seen how it's evolved, the impact it's had, and its exciting future.
It's truly changing how we handle conflict in this increasingly digital world.
Huge thank you to all our amazing listeners for coming along on this journey. We hope you found it informative, thought-provoking, and maybe even a little mind-blowing.
Until next time, keep those brains curious and keep exploring the fascinating world around us.
Happy deep diving, everyone.